Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Internado. We're brought to you, as always, by Higher Echelon. We appreciate Higher Echelon and Joe Ross sponsoring this podcast. Check out Black Knight Nation's website. We have Seth Mendelson's game story up there. I have an interesting story on my opinion on where this bowl fiasco has gone to. We're going to talk about Army Navy. We're going to talk about the Independence Bowl here, and we're also going to talk about Kanye Udo on his way out of West Point and in the transfer portal too. We're going to talk about that stuff. We have Seth Mendelson, who Seth and I spent 9 hours in the car together, as he reminded me before this podcast took the air. We went DC one day trip, and I guess there was some things to talk about after the game. And Cuthbert is back from SN Army with us, and we hope to have Steve Anderson here in a little bit. Like to get Steve's opinion. I know that he's been on his phone a lot with Army football grads and the disappointment of a 31-13 loss to Navy. The Commander-in-Chief's trophy heads to Annapolis. It leaves West Point. I don't know where to start other than it's simple that this game is where Army was outplayed and outcoached. Seth wrote it in a story. I got some opinions on, the week that Army had heading into the Army-Navy game, with the Jeff Monken coaching search, with Matt Drinkall getting the head coaching job at Central Michigan. And there seemed to be a lot of stuff going on in the program. I'm not saying that the players weren't focused, but Navy just came out with an energy that Army didn't match, in my opinion. And that's how I'll start. That's what I'm going to get into later in the recap. Maybe we'll get Seth's opening thoughts here. I mean, I'm sure he has a few. So,
yeah, well, thank you. Of course I do. It was a nice car ride up and down to DC with you. My opening thoughts start very simply. We're dealing with 21-year-old guys, and yes, they are in prime condition in terms of their bodies, but they're still 21-year-old men. And I think there were a tremendous number of distractions this week. As you mentioned, a few of them, Bryson Daly being considered for the finalists for the Heisman Trophy is another one. The bowl game and not knowing who we were going to play after, the uncertainty of last week with Marshall losing their coach and then a lot of their players backing out, and the rumors of maybe they wouldn't play on playing the game, which came to fruition, and of course losing one coach and then having Monken, according to reports, interviewing at several different places. I think that didn't help, and also the fact that we had a championship game last Friday night in the cold at Mikey. And we had a focus. Army had a focus on that game and didn't have the opportunity to rest up and get focused as much as Navy could for this game. Let me say this before I stop. Navy played a sensational game. Their offensive and defensive plans were excellent. This quarterback is Blake Horvath, had 204 yards, couldn't bring him down, couldn't stop him, made some key plays, key passes. And Navy was just very impressive. They came to play. They came to win. But this was not the same Army team I saw in the previous 12 games, including the Notre Dame game, where they never gave up. They got blasted, but they never gave up. This was a different team. I'll leave it at that for now.
Cuthbert, you're up.
Well, I'll tell you, I know how the Tulane fans felt a week ago. Credit to Navy. They schemed it. They were prepared. Their coaching decisions, everything that they did, their players on the field, they executed perfectly. Credit in the world to them. Obviously, I have several criticisms for the Black Knights. Watching that game, it felt like by and large, everything Navy was doing, every decision they made was the right one. And everything we were doing and every decision we made were the wrong ones. And I know that isn't really true every single play, but boy, that's the way it felt. And it seemed to me pretty clear that, Navy came in with their plan and Army came in with our plan. And at the end of the first quarter, it looked like Navy's plan, they were going to be able to stick to their plan pretty well. and we needed to make some adjustments. And I was pretty confident we could make those adjustments even at halftime. Even at halftime, I thought, look, there's still a lot of football to play, and I know we're down, but the adjustments, they just never came. It seemed like our defense all day, we were lining up to stop the pass, and they didn't beat us through the air. They beat us. I mean, Horvath really beat us on the ground between the play calling and the quality of his play. And then, their defense came to stop the run, and then they did stop the run. I was waiting for us to open up the playbook from the UTSA game, and don't get me wrong, I think we actually had the same number or just about the same number of passes in both games, but it certainly didn't. The games didn't feel the same, and some of those adjustments that were lacking on Army's side, I think that's really what bit us in the butt. And then it comes down to, the play on the field. I don't want to denigrate our guys. I know that they were working hard going into the tunnel at halftime. I'm sure they felt like they were still in the game. But towards the end, you start getting desperate. All of a sudden, you know what I mean? You're stepping over the line of scrimmage to make a pass. The pass doesn't even count, and it gets intercepted anyway. That kind of thing. And it starts snowballing, and all of a sudden there's a 300-pounder going for 26 yards on a fake punt. You know what I mean? And it's just insult to injury at that point. So it is what it is. This wasn't our year for the Army-Navy game.
I saw a Twitter comment from a guy who follows the Black Knight Nation pretty religiously, and he was saying that him and his son were jumping out of their seats telling Army to call a timeout before that fake punt, that they could even see it coming. Watching it on TV. I haven't been able to watch the replay yet. And Coach Monken said that's the thing he regretted, going after the punt instead of keeping his defense on the field. It's a 21-13 game, I believe, at that point. It's still a one-score game when that happens. You can figure I was on the field for that. It's fourth quarter. I have it on video. You can check out, the Instagram accounts and our X accounts. I have a field not TV quality, but it's cell phone quality. And you just see that the play developing, and it's a killer. But the thing with that play too is I didn't recognize this watching it from the far end zone. Robinson fumbled the ball. And so there was a chance for Army to recover that ball and still, get out of there with it. In that situation, they didn't, and the ball didn't go Army's way a lot of times. That pitch play where Navy lost 20 yards or 15 yards, there wasn't an Army player within 15 yards of the pitch. Just happenstance, maybe, I don't know. It just didn't seem like it was going to be Army's day. Let's get to some comments real quick. We appreciate you guys watching us. Barry Tenney's comment was in before we even went on the air. So let's give Barry Tenney a thumbs up. Losing to CIC would have felt so much worse if we had lost the AAC championship game. Hope we can retain young players. This sophomore class can be special in 2 years, even with Udo leaving. Ben Davis checking in with lots of distractions, including Marshall canceling on us right before kickoff. Army seemed flat for whatever reason. Hard to believe with CIC on the line. In my humble opinion, have to wonder about rest and injuries. We'll get into that in a second, Ben. Scott, lots of distractions plus academic demands too. Ken M saying it's hard to understand how the focus could be there even if Coach Monken is interviewing for another school. All the awards and accolades were given, but Navy was not impressed. I want to get into a couple things real quick. I don't know if the Marshall thing, Seth, came out during the game or before the game.
It came out right before the game, but I don't know if the players knew about it.
Yeah, they probably had no clue about that. I think, this is my opinion, I want to get in this real quick. Navy, after the game, and if you look at Brian Newberry's comments to, I believe, Tina Savasio or Jenny Dell, I guess, the CBS sideline reporter, Monken's comments on the Pat McAfee show saying there's still a school, they still play football at that school, was the fire for this game for Navy. Added fire. They already have the emotion of the Army-Navy game, and you throw that on the fire. They were playing to make a point, and they no doubt played harder, and they were better, and they were fired up on that. How many Twitter posts did I see of Navy players commenting on that, Navy ex-players commenting on that? That threw fuel on the fire. And
if I can jump in on that for 1 second,
yeah.
And I understand if you're a Navy fan or you're a Navy player and you want to jump on that and you want to say, oh, yeah, of course we're still playing. What do you think? I get it. That is a canned line that Monken used several times this year. He initially used it about Air Force in the press conference prior to the Air Force game. Or it wasn't prior to the Air Force game, excuse me. It was a few weeks before Air Force. It was his weekly press conference. He threw the line out. At the time, I was thinking to myself, oh, man, what a mic drop moment, especially because I think at the time Air Force was like 1-4 or 0-3, something like that.
Yeah.
So it kind of made sense. Then he said it again about Navy a few weeks later, not on the Pat McAfee show. And at that time, I think Navy was like 6-0 or 6-1, something like that. And then he said it again on McAfee. I mean, I understand people being on social media and wanting to like use that and stuff it back in our faces. But if anyone here is listening, you need to understand, like, that is a canned line. That's not, I mean, when he made that comment about Navy, I think it may have even been like the week Navy was ranked before they lost to Notre Dame. I mean, it was late in the season when Navy was performing well. This is a strong Navy team. I mean, they came in with 9 wins for a reason. So, I think that's getting a lot of traction on social media. I don't really think that's the way he felt or that big of a deal. So I'm personally letting that kind of roll off.
It's tongue in cheek, but still, I mean, Seth, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Jeff Monken goes out of his way to compliment every team and every coach in his press conferences beforehand, including Navy and Air Force. Okay. And I don't know why he used that line for both teams. He did. You're right. I heard it 3 times myself during the year, once with Air Force and twice with Navy. I don't think that's called for. I just don't think that's bulletin board stuff, and that's how you get a team motivated. Navy doesn't need any more motivation. There you go. Somebody agreeing with me. Okay, so Navy doesn't need any more motivation. As Army shouldn't need any more motivation. We gave it to him. Okay, and he sat there. He said it. He shouldn't have said it. Was he joking? Maybe. Was tongue in cheek? Sure, possibly. But they used it, and they all talked about it. The coach, the first line out of the coach's mouth in the post-game post-game comments on the field was, "Hey, Navy has a team." That's the first thing he said. So obviously, it's something that is top of mind with everybody. And guess what? The end result, it worked. I'm sure other factors played a role, but it worked.
It comes back to bite you a little bit, but then you say something like that, and whether it was in October or whatever it was weeks back, right? But your team better back it up on the field. Your team better back it up on the field, and to hear him in the press conference say, "Hey, maybe we got to coach a little better. I gotta get my coaches to coach a little better, get my players to play a little better." It's Army Navy, and the thing is. Coach Monken did say that it was a little bit lighter practices than usual because he wanted to get his team as healthy to this game as possible. That's fine, but I mean, I just don't know, man. If you can't get up and you can't play your best against Navy, you say all season long, this is the biggest game of the year, right? You say this is the biggest game of the year. And you can't give out one of your worst efforts in the biggest game of the year. It's as simple as that to me. You just can't. Let's get to a comment real quick. Not real quick. Let's get to a comment. William De Los Santos saying, this game and the Army-Navy game is an argument to move the Army-Navy game prior to conference championships. Both participants of championships lost in the Army-Navy game. Yeah, so I guess in 2016, Navy played for the AAC title and then lost the previous week to an Army team. That was a streak buster in 2016, and this year it's not going to be moved. CBS just re-upped its contract with the Army-Navy game to 2038. They want it in this spot. It's going to be in this spot, and I think even Tim Pernetti said, right, Seth, in some kind of presser before the AAC championship game, that it's going to stay probably. Let's go to Ben Davis. Army and Navy weren't sharp from the very first play penalty on the very first play was very bad. Let's welcome Steve Anderson into the podcast. Steve, I hope you're okay and you're doing well after Saturday. You okay with it? You're right there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously seen better weekends, but yeah, we are surviving.
Gotcha. Just give us your feelings on the game. I know you've been going through this with some Army grads for the last 24 hours, but just sum up your thoughts on what happened on Saturday with a 31-13 loss to Navy.
I think we were just beat up. To be 100% honest, we weren't as crisp as we've been in recent weeks. A lot of highs in the past few weeks, especially this last week, doing something that's never been done before. I mean, when you look at it, at the end of the day, you've got two very similar teams, physicality and athletic capability wise. You have two similar teams that are schematically similar, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually similar in the way they carry themselves and the way they believe. And then you got a team that played 4 games in 28 days and a team that's played 2 games in 28 days. The second game being Army, and the fourth game being Navy. So just looked like we were a little sluggish, a little tired. You go from having a near perfect game in the AAC championship game to a lot of mistakes, a lot of not Army plays out there. And I know you guys, I just came on when you guys talking about even the start of the game with a penalty is just not, doesn't bode well. So I think overall, I think that was a big factor. Navy, Navy's quarterback running all over us. It just seemed like their offensive line was able to just establish dominance throughout the entire game, and it just kind of continued that way. Man, the things that we've have not relied on but have gotten used to is the big plays by Bryson Daly and the completions, the high completions, the lack of turnovers, and I think it was almost not to get blasphemous here, but I think early that they made Xerxes the god bleed, right, and they got a lot of momentum from that. That was a 300 reference, in case you guys didn't get that. But yeah, I think overall, very disappointing loss the way we lost. But I know those guys are. I read a quote the other day that was I was like, this is the most unsuccessful 11-2 season anybody's ever had in the history of college football, and it certainly feels that way. Even though we have a lot to be proud about up until this point, it really just punches you in the gut losing the CIC.
Yeah, I remember talking to Lucas Scott before this game this week, and he said, man, if we don't beat Navy, then this season's not the same. It's just not the same in the 11 wins. And just watching the game, and you can see it from the press box, man, that Navy nose tackle, Landon Robinson, was given the offensive line fits. He was just giving the offensive line fits. They kept on insisting on running up the middle, insisting on it, and there was nothing there. There was that, Kanye Udo 53 yards for the game, Bryson 52 yards for the game. It's not really what the averages are. They're way down on that. And got to give credit to both lines of Navy. They won the trenches, plain and simple. They won the trenches. And Army's offensive line, the night before was a Joe Moore Award winner for the best offensive line in the country, and they weren't against Navy. It's plain and simple. They just weren't against Navy. They weren't doing the things that they were doing throughout the year. And, I didn't really, maybe because of the Navy penetration, I didn't see the when they get Lucas Scott out in space, or when they get the tackle out in space and they have Bryson run behind the tackle. I didn't see any of those counter plays, Steve. I didn't see anything to where there was zone. Was there a lot of zone running, I guess, would you say, Steve? I don't know. There just wasn't a lot of Well,
No,
I've imagined.
I'll
Go
tell
ahead.
you what. It was either. I mean, I know there was concerns about how Navy defensively did not have any. Um, what do you call it? Tendencies as far as what kind of defenses they were going to be in on certain downs and distances. I know that was a concern. Was Navy's defensive coordinator lives off of no tendencies and just kind of you know keeping the offense guessing. And it seemed like many times I mean, many times. I was shocked at how many times it happened, but there was multiple series, multiple plays where they were running stunts and blitzes and out of their base defense that was fitting perfectly to the play call that Army was calling. So it was it almost got to a point where I was stopped watching Army's offense and started watching Navy's defense because I was shocked at the correct timing on the twist or the blitz or the slants or the crosses. It was wild. Either there was tells we were given, there was formations they knew, or there was something that gave them an edge to where they were able to pick up on the whatever we were trying to establish or the plays we were trying to run.
Well, I have a quick question actually for you, Steve, because I know, I mean, as a former player, you may have a better sense about this than I do. I'm not an offensive coordinator. It's very easy for me to play armchair quarterback, and I'm the biggest Cody Worley fan in the world. But I will say, it seemed like the one play we had, the most successful play of the game, was the touchdown pass to Hayden Reed. And what made that play so successful was it looked for the first, 2.5 seconds, for the first 3 steps of the play, that it was going to be a shotgun quarterback draw. And then all of a sudden, Bryson Daly gets halfway to the line, stops, backs up, and throws a perfect little pop pass to a wide open Hayden Reed that no one's expecting it. And we always talk every year about we're saving things for Navy and we're running plays so that we can set things up for the Army-Navy game. Everything comes down to this. And then I watch this game and I go, how is it we can have what seems to me, again, I don't have trained eyes, we have one play where we're setting up and everything looks like we're going to run one of the, let's say, 25 plays that we run most typically. We get 2 steps in and all of a sudden it's a misdirection. We go in a different direction. The defense isn't expecting it, because that's the type of adjustment I was hoping for. We would have some tricks up our sleeve, not even necessarily, double reverses that are literal trick plays, but just you think it's going to be the jet sweep, but instead we're going to run a variation we haven't run all year. No one's going to see it coming. And not that it's going to blow open for a touchdown, but we're going to get, a good gain, and we're going to be able to help keep that defense honest. What is your take on what seemed to me our inability to do that?
Well, I think that first and foremost, you go into halftime and you're looking at what they did well, or what they were able to stop against what your bread and butter is, right? And then you're like, okay, so this is what they're doing that's stopping us from running our offense. So this is what we're going to go to. All right. I think we saw a little bit of that, but I think there was just I think there's just a little bit like, hey, we've been one of the best in the country all year. Let's just stick to what we know, and it'll eventually work. I mean, it's not like they haven't had success running this offense. It's just it wasn't successful this night, and we all know the game. It's crazy. You see Vanderbilt beat Alabama, and you just never know when you're bread and butter. And I'm sure the coaches are going to wonder if they should have gone to more, different styles to throw Navy off. But again, I'm telling you, this Navy defense had no tendency. So it's very hard to say this is what they're going to do or this is how we're going to defeat it in the second half, because this is what they're doing to us as the first half. I mean, it's like that old chess play, right? It's like, okay, then they're going to switch this up, and then we're going to go to this, or we're going to do this. I know in the past, especially last year, just because of the the 2 weeks off, or we tried the shotgun last year and all this stuff, is there's a little bit of this install that occurred during Navy weeks, and because we had the bye week, and we do some install, and we'll throw this at them, and it has slowed guys down in the past where they can't play fast. They're playing with conscious competence, which means they're thinking about doing the right thing, instead of unconscious competence, which is not even have to thinking about, I just can run my plays very fluid, no problem. And I think that's what they were going after today. I think Sal hit it. That nose tackle for Navy was just being an absolute monster. They were running all sorts of crazy stuff with the D line at certain times that just seemed like it was working, whether it was slants, crosses, or backers filling. So
they were confused, and they were confused in the Army's offensive line, I think.
yeah, I mean, I really do. I give it to Navy's defensive coordinator and defensive line and backers, but yeah, I agree with you in the aspect that there should have been something more, but at the same time, I don't. It wasn't until the end of the game when I really felt like this game was getting away from us. Where it was just basically kind of like compounding interest was occurring, right? And then it just hit us like in the third quarter where it was like, oh, like this game's almost getting out of reach if we're not careful here. And I think maybe there was like, I don't know. Again, this is just from, kind of reflecting over the past 24 hours. I don't think there was any real concern. Like, okay, this is like boys are going to start doing what they've been doing, right? O-line's about to start crushing the D-line, and I just don't think that ever occurred. And I think momentum was huge. Man, I tell you what, I cannot stand watching Navy celebrate mid-game on their sidelines. It is something that really pisses me off more than anything. So, but yeah, I back to your original point, I'm sure they had it. I just don't know if they ever felt like the game was that far out of hand until it was out of hand.
Or if what they had as a backup plan would work against Navy too. If there was not enough confidence in the flow of the offense to call those plays. I mean, Navy was playing they were playing within 12 yards of the line, all 11 guys. They were daring Army to throw deep.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, yeah, I mean, even with having, a really good passing quarterback, I mean, that's what you want to do. You want to make a triple option quarterback beat you with their arm and make those throws. And I think they just kept daring it all day. And, we didn't really have a lot go our way when we need them to kind of shift the momentum. On top of that, I think a lot of those plays have to be set up. And when you don't establish a certain thing, you can't set up the 3-4, or the counter punch to something that hasn't been established yet, because nobody's on their toes, super worried about the fullback dive and the QB follow.
Yeah.
So
they were
Steve,
behind.
Do you think that maybe the coaches saw that the team was tired before the game, during practice, and they didn't want to go and try anything that was, too outrageous? They figured that let's just go with the tried and true. Monken made some reference to the fact that, during the week, he just got off a big game against Tulane. He made, he was taking it a little bit more easy with certain things. Do you think that maybe that's what they went with?
I honestly, I think after last year and doing a lot of install and switching the offense, and again, there has to be a lot of confidence in these guys. They had a great season. You got to trust that there doesn't need to be a lot of hoorah for Navy. There doesn't need to be a lot of extra going on. Um, that was an emotional high last Saturday, right? A very emotional high. Um, I think the guys probably took a little longer to probably dial in for Navy than we probably would have liked. And this is all, I don't know. I think, but I think at the same time, um, I don't think there was any lack of desire or any want or any effort. I just think with all that had gone on, clinching a home win the week before, that's huge, right? Like UTSA, we clinched the home, and then that's a high. And then we beat Tulane in a near perfect game. That's a high, and you got this confidence, and you're feeling good. I don't think this team ever got to the point where it was like, all right, this is when we're arrived, everything's clicking, like we're gonna take care of Navy. I think it was a more of a fact that emotionally, right? They were finally getting themselves up for Navy. Whereas Navy had 2 weeks, they were dialed in. They knew they could destroy our whole season by beating us. And there's a lot of power to having nothing to lose versus everything to gain, in the aspect where you're coming off a super high, the other team's coming off a super low. And just want to play spoiler. So I don't, Seth, I don't think there was any lack of like, I don't think, I definitely don't think Coach Muncomb was taking it easy on him. That doesn't match his personality. But I think there is a sense of these guys are tired. I have to ensure they're ready for the game versus, make sure they're intense on Tuesday when these guys just had a very intense weekend.
Well, and this is an underdog game. This is an underdog game. I don't know what the statistic is exactly, but I think it's something like 3 of the last 4. I mean, this is the type of rivalry game, especially because it's played after the conference championship, that a year like this, especially now that we're in the American with Navy, let alone back in, let's say, 2016, where when you're the underdog, it's just like you said, Steve. When you have sort of nothing to lose, which is funny to say about Navy, who had a spectacular season. I mean, they were 9 wins coming in. If we were 9 wins coming in on a regular year, we'd be pumped. You know what I mean? It's not like we're coming in at 11-1 and they're coming in at 3-6. You know what I mean, or whatever. So this is an underdog game. When I saw that line come out early in the week, I just thought, boy, I don't like it when Army's favored 1. It makes me uncomfortable. And then to be favored in the Navy game makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And then to see that many points, I just thought, this game, it doesn't operate like that. This is the puncher's chance. This is the underdog fighting uphill. You know what I mean? Which is the story of a service academy. It's the story of the United States military. It's the mindset of the soldier, of the sailor, of the airman, you name it. So it all sort of fits the narrative. It is what it is.
Yeah, and that goes back to my first point. I mean, the teams are so similar physically, emotionally, athletically, mentally, and they've been, now, in 2024, both very successful programs, and then you take into account that one team has played twice as much as the other team over the same amount of time. It's going to be. I didn't like the line either. I don't ever like it when Army's favored. I like the underdog. It was like the first time of the year we ever got any respect too. It was like, oh yeah, now they're going to sprinkle a little respect on Army for a game. And yeah, so I mean, just getting the text, about, I think what I'm most exhausted about is everyone texts me about, oh, you really think they believed in they belonged in the college football playoff now, and all the naysayers and haters out there, and it's super frustrating. But there's still a lot to be proud about this season for sure. Hey, I see Scott's
Yeah,
message here. The Heinrich catch and the run TD in the third was a big deflator. Missed tackle also hurt. Yeah, I mean,
that's big. It's big. I mean, they had two big pass plays, really. The start with that screen pass to the fullback or whatever, the swing pass to the fullback.
okay, first off, I've watched triple option for many years. Okay, I have never seen a speed counter screen option in my life to the fullback ever. I thought that was the most craziest call. And I was like, well, yeah, of course it did well. I've never seen that before. How can you even go against it or play against it? So a lot of tricking with the eyes, the lineman, the fullback, the flow. I mean, that was a very well executed play. Again, we had guys there that were able to make the tackle not as far down, but I mean they had the lead blockers and stuff. So
Hey,
very
real
tough.
quick. Sorry, Steve, real quick. So those two pass plays went for 83 yards. 83 yards. And Army's longest run of the game was 12 yards. 12 yards was their longest run of the game by Kanye Udo. And I'm trying to the pass plays. I mean, they benefited from a couple pass interference calls. Army did in the second half, but their longest play was 23 yards. The Hayden Reed touchdown pass. So I mean, those two plays were killers. Those two pass plays. One to start off the game, and that one.
I mean, look, what has Army done well all year?
Tackle.
They've ran the ball, controlled the line of scrimmage. They've not turned the ball over, and they've played, just stiff defense. Okay, we didn't do any of those three things. We didn't do any of those three things against Navy. We didn't take care of the ball. We didn't run the ball well. And I mean, we ended up with 124 yards rushing.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah,
It was 113. 113.
No, yeah. I mean,
Well, and in the Tulane game, that touchdown they had in the first half, we had some open field tackling issues on that play, and there were some plays yesterday. I think it was Horvath's what was his 48-yarder where we had a defensive back crashing in, and I'm watching the replay and I'm like, it looks like you could reach out and touch Horvath. Now, don't get me wrong. Horvath is very, very talented. I'm not trying to say it's easy to tackle him, but we definitely had some open field tackling issues. The Heidenreich touchdown, Horvath had a couple of long runs, the 48-yarder, and he had a 21-yarder that was the same deal where he's running by unblocked Army players. And it wasn't something that bit us all season, but boy, when it bit us hard. I mean, talk about momentum killers,
Yeah, no doubt. It definitely wasn't. It was Army's defense's worst game of the year. So that's all we can say. Steve, you had the score right in your prediction, but you had the wrong teams, dude. I'm sorry to say, man. Let's any other thoughts on the game before we get to some other news real quick? Seth, you got anything for us?
About the game or about the other news?
About the game.
No, I'm good. I think we covered it. Like I said, I think the team ran out of steam during the year. Played a lot of games, 13 games in 16 weeks. Emotional games since the Air Force game in early November. One emotional game after another. And I think it caught up with them, and Navy was ready for it.
I want to say real quick in the press conference, Cody Weineker had said something to the effect that he told the team in the locker room after the game, you can't just roll the ball out and expect to win. You got to still do the things right that you've done all year long. And when you don't do the things right that you've done all year long, this is going to be what happens. So I thought that the 2 minutes or so that Cody Weineker spoke at the press conference were very telling. Those are on our at Twitter Black Knight Nation X account. If you want to see the video, I'll try to post it. The player videos, the press conference videos are on our YouTube page. The Monken press conference video has over 3,500 views right now. And I bet you half of them are from Navy saying, we told you we have a team. We do have a team in Annapolis, but it is what it is. Let's get to the bowl stuff. Steve, the disrespect continued yesterday. Marshall backs out and opts out, which is fine. They don't have enough players. Marshall, you can opt out. Now, who's going to be the replacement? And I thought, man, this is a great time to maybe get a Power 4 opponent that we talked about, maybe like a Wisconsin, a Cincinnati, even Air Force was in the mix. Air Force was number 3 on the APR, and that's how they base the bowl replacements. They go by your APR ranking. And you hear that Louisiana Tech's the opponent now, and they're 5-7, and they're from Conference USA, and they're an hour away from Shreveport. And it's just like, what are we doing here? I wrote the story. Please read my story on BlackKnightNation.com. It's on our social medias. It's just very frustrating that what's happening and what's happened to Army in this bowl situation. Air Force wanted to play Army again. Now, I don't know if Independence Bowl, Air Force at number 3 in APR wanted to play Army. I don't know if Independence Bowl said, no, Louisiana Tech's closer. We're picking Louisiana Tech. I don't know if Army said, you know what? We really don't want to play Air Force again. We beat them once. They're I don't think they're saying this, but Air Force finished the season strong. Air Force wants to play another game. They want to play another game. They want to keep on feeling good about themselves. I don't know what happens there, but man, it's just another slap in the face. This Louisiana Tech game, it really is. And then I asked for a comment from the commission. Oh, here's what we're doing. We're firing Seth after this podcast because we're in the press box. Tim Pernetti's in the press box. He's on the phone. I'm like, Seth, keep an eye on Tim Pernetti. When he gets on the phone, your assignment is simple. Ask Tim Pernetti some questions. 2 minutes later, Seth turns around. Tim Pernetti's gone. We didn't get a comment from the commission.
20 seconds later.
That's his fire.
We're sitting there on the phone talking about this very thing. We didn't realize it at the time. And I stood there looking at the guy for about 10 minutes. I turned around for about 40 seconds and he was gone. So I don't think Tim Pernetti would have given me the time of day if I was able to get him. He was on the phone with his son, I think his son. So, hey, it was nice being here.
Hey, Seth, I think that also we kind of traded you during the game or something like that to another website, possibly a competitive website or another website because of your inability to secure the Tim Pernetti interview.
I think they traded me back though at the end of the game.
I don't know, man.
Listen, let's talk about the fact that what I'm hearing from my sources is that I think, Sal, you're onto something, and what they're saying is they wanted to fill seats for the game, and Louisiana Tech, an hour away, is going to bring exactly, Steve.
How many fans is Louisiana Tech going to bring to this bowl game? How many fans?
They hope more than an Air Force would. That's what they're hoping for. I think you're right. A 5-7 team. Are they going to, bring 10,000 people? I don't think so, but they do. And they went with them. I'm sure there's a little bit of panic going on in the Independence Bowl committee's conference room yesterday morning, or maybe even, Friday night when they got wind of this, whatever that was. But they decided, let's go with they took the safest route, and the safest route is Louisiana Tech, and hoping that they'll bring 5,000-10,000 people who pay $25-$30 and a ticket, whatever it goes for, $50 a ticket, and fill some seats for TV.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever it is,
Steve,
like I said yesterday.
I was just gonna say, I think this is the attempt on somebody's getting paid a lot of money to figure out who's going to make who's going to make the Independence Bowl the most money. All right, there's somebody on the staff that their whole job is to make sure this game makes the most money possible with what our options are. Somebody ran some algorithm. Someone ran something that said LA Tech was going to give them the most money. Or the other thing came out. It was like, all right, if I pick a close team and they really produce for me and everyone's against me, but I'm the one that makes the decision, I'm a genius here, I'm going to move up in the ranks and make more money one day. So that's all. It all goes back to money. I mean, I think, look, the location is not everybody's favorite location. And I think an Air Force Army would have been really good, but I honestly don't know what would have happened there if who said what about whether Air Force wanted to really play or if Army didn't want to play him. But I also do think that
you think Army would want to play him? I'm not sure Army would want to play him.
Yeah, I mean, you've already beat them once, so there's no real no real benefit for beating them again. Look, there's still a lot on the line, a lot of history to be made still in the bowl game. So I know these guys are going to be dialed in. I mean, we still have the chance, hey, look, I'm glad LA Tech's the thing, because I want to see Bryson Daly set the all-time rushing record for QBs. I want to see a 12th win, the most wins by an Army program in the history of the program. So I mean, there's still a lot of history to be made here. I think the wound's still very, very deep, and it's not fun talking about LA Tech yet. But still a lot of history to be made and a lot of excitement around this team, for the bowl game.
Yeah. Cuthbert, you got any thoughts?
I think this is an unbelievable and potentially unforgivable slap in the face. As someone who passionately defended the choice or the decision, the original decision to play Marshall. Now, admittedly, that was prior to the mass exodus. But as someone who, in the face of significant opposition, at least on social media, significant opposition from members of the fan base, who respectfully, I was 100% in favor of Marshall relative to some Power 4 also ran bottom feeder, right? Then Marshall pulls out. This is a conference champion, and they have so many people in the transfer portal because their relationship with their former head coach was so toxic that he takes a step down for less or for the same amount of money. Takes basically all of his players with him. A bunch of other guys decide it's time for them to leave. They pull out. We get a 5-7 team. I understand that in the face of losing to Navy, it's like, well, you should be happy to have anyone. Let me remind everybody, Navy was a 9-win team. Our only 2 losses this year are to Notre Dame and Navy. Those have got to be 2 of the best losses that anyone can have this year. You know what I mean? In terms of the quality of teams you're losing to. So for us to get Louisiana Tech, it's beyond the pale, in my opinion. It's beyond the pale. I mean, no disrespect to Louisiana Tech. I don't even know what their mascot is. I'm sorry, I don't. They're 5-7 in Conference USA. It's the worst of the Power 4 conferences. Maybe it's marginally better than the MAC, but what are we doing here? What are we doing? We were ranked. I get it. We lost to Navy. Prior to that, we were ranked in the college football playoff. We are ranked in the AP. We are ranked in the coaches poll, right? We've lost our second game. Understandable. 5-7 Conference USA team. What is happening to college football? We've got to get the transfer portal moved back behind the bowl games. We've got to get NIL contracts that require guys to play in bowls. I don't know, maybe we need a top-down bowl organization where the college football playoff, they decide the top 12, and then from 13 down to wherever the last eligible team is, it's just 13 plays 14, 15 plays 16, 17 plays 18, all the way down. I don't know. I don't know how to solve this problem, but this is truly beyond the pale. I said on Twitter, so the last thing I'm going to say on it, I said this on Twitter, and apologies to my father who is going to be watching this podcast. The greatest season that we have had since 1958 is going to end like a fart in church, and I'm very, very upset by this.
I'm going to say something that's going to get me probably.
It goes back to what Steve and I were talking about.
Go ahead, Seth.
It goes back to getting fannies in the chair, in the seats. And that's why we're playing Louisiana Tech, and that's the bottom line. They were 17th in that rating. They shouldn't be in this game. They're here. Hey, we got to win this game now, okay? Because it's still a very good season. We're 11-2, okay? We can, to Steve's point, we can set a record. Is it an academy record, Steve? What's the record for most wins by the academy?
Is 11. 11 wins in 2018 is the record.
Okay. So I'm talking about academy, Air Force and Navy. They don't have more than 11, do they?
I don't know.
I don't think so. Yeah. So, I mean, if we get 12 wins, 12-2, listen, we lost to Navy. It's water under the bridge now. We got to beat this Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, I believe. and then build from there. Start all over again. Next year's a new year.
I'm going to say something that's going to get me in a lot of trouble, but I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to get it off my chest, and that'll be it, and then we'll move on to Kane Udo. Tim Pernetti had a state. I emailed the communications guy for the American Conference today looking for a statement from Commissioner Tim Pernetti. I received a statement that was just from the conference saying, thanks for Louisiana Tech for stepping up and rising to the occasion and playing in this game so Army can have an opponent. Tim Pernetti then proceeds to comment to Brett McMurphy, a well-regarded reporter from the Action Network, saying, maybe a team like Marshall, if they're extended the bid, shouldn't take the bid if they know that if they anticipate not having enough players. So basically pointing it off on Marshall, saying, if Marshall shouldn't have taken the bid if they knew they couldn't take the game. Please have some accountability, the Independence Bowl. Please have some accountability, the AAC, please. And you have your conference champion now playing 5-7. Somebody take responsibility for it and don't blame other people. Don't blame Marshall. Why did you extend the bid to Marshall in the first place? Independence Bowl. Their coach was not extending the contract. He wasn't coming back. I guess you couldn't foresee players might go to the portal. It's just the champion versus champion matchup is not as sexy as people think. That's my opinion. And Army, while your second, third, fourth, and fifth teams, like we've been through before in the AAC, are playing the Power 4 opponents, whether they're 6-6, middle of the road teams, they're still the name brand, Steve, like you talked about. There's still Oklahoma's, there's Florida's involved, North Carolina State, not so much. All due respect to Wolfpack. But why is the finger only being pointed at Marshall? Take some responsibility. You're the Atlantic. You're the American Athletic Conference. Your champion is playing a 5-7 team. That's all I'll say. What are you doing, Cuthbert? Like I said in my story, what are you doing here? It's unreal. You can't make this stuff up. You can't really make this stuff up.
And it's strange too, because you would think, and maybe this is, I don't know. I'm just speculating here because I didn't really know a lot about the AAC until this year, but you have your conference champion leave last year, you had your conference champion leave and then almost win the ACC. And you usually don't leave somewhere if you're valued and respected and what you're worth. So, I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I'm starting to feel maybe, and I'll go look at who SMU played as the conference champion last year, and I'm going to start looking at some of that because, look, a win in a bowl game is money to the conference. All right, so again, not to make everything about money, but I know money unfortunately makes a lot of decisions for a lot of people in a lot of organizations. But a win over LA Tech seems pretty good deal to take home that purse at the end of the day.
Bring back
Steve. The answer to your question. The answer to your question is SMU played Boston College in the Fenway Bowl last year and lost 23-14. Interesting.
They got the Fenway Bowl, the AAC champion. Okay, whatever. I mean, we're done with this. I mean, I'm just kind of done with I don't know. Somebody other than blaming Marshall take accountability for this. Somebody, and you try to get a response. I would love to. I attempted to have a statement from Mike Buddy today. It didn't happen. I wanted to find out, did they decline the Air Force being an opponent? There's talks going on behind the scenes at these bowls, like we talked about before they set these bowls. Who the heck knows, but very frustrating. Let's get to, if it wasn't a gut punch to lose, if it wasn't, tough to lose to Navy last night, then you get the gut punch as we're driving home. Seth's reading his phone, and there's some chatter about Kane Udo entering the transfer portal. And, during the season, he's having a great season. He's a great talent, Kane Udo. I know there was even some staff concerns about, hey, there's a chance that this might happen. And to have it happen, after the game, and he posts that he's going into the transfer portal. Your top running back, a guy who rushed for over 1,000 yards, a guy who combined with Bryson Daly, possibly to be the best statistically best duo in Army history as far as two rushers. Man, it was tough. It's tough, and I wish Kanye the best. I mean, I think about Kanye during the Air Force game and how he stopped the press conference and made sure Dwayne Coleman got his due for starting that game and winning that game. I'm thinking about the character that Kanye Udoh has. It's just tough tough after the Navy game. And the thing is, this was something that had to be in motion before the game. He didn't just say, "Oh, we lost to Navy, I'm entering the portal." This was something he has an agency or a talent he hired that is going to take care of his recruitment and any inquiries for NILs. He's already in the transfer portal. He's got the form that he's already been approved for the transfer portal. That doesn't happen in a day at West Point, I wouldn't imagine. It doesn't happen in 12 hours, I wouldn't imagine. I have a feeling like this was something that probably was known that it was likely to happen. So it's just really tough. I don't know.
Yeah, there's wish Kanye the best. Look, going all the way to going to West Point and serving is a lot different than going to West Point and playing football. A lot of guys don't understand that. A lot of guys, I certainly didn't understand that. I know what kept me there was the guys to my left and right. I just really enjoyed the relationships I built, and I couldn't imagine playing football somewhere without the guys that I had started prep school with, and the guys I eventually, started just playing football with. So that was what kept me at West Point. It definitely wasn't the opportunities that West Point provided you as an underclassman, that's for sure. But I think at the same time, a lot of things have changed in the college landscape. And, I'll never fault a guy. This decision wasn't easy for him. There's no way he was like, oh yeah, I have no problem leaving this core group of guys. Sal, you may know, but is he a prep school guy?
Yeah, he played at the prep school.
Yeah, yep. I mean, the guy is almost essentially fully matured, as almost a 21-year-old man now. So a lot of opportunities for him. Wish him the best. I just hope, I have plenty of maybe he doesn't, again, everything has changed since the last time the guys did it and then they came back. But, I hope he doesn't regret it. That's all. I just hope that whatever decision he makes, he feels strong enough about it to where he doesn't regret it. And he doesn't have to live with the what if, and everything works out for him and he gets to enjoy the rest of his college career.
With all due respect to the fullbacks that Army's had in the past, with all due respect to the running backs that Army's had in the past, I don't know if Army's had as talented as a back as Kanye since maybe Ray Maples. Ray Maples was super talented guy, could probably have played, elsewhere talent-wise. Kanye did take, he was the top running back on the team, top rusher. He also was pretty key in the blocking scheme on some of Bryson Daly's key runs too. He did his part in the blocking. He bought into the blocking. He was a good teammate with that too. So, it's just tough. I mean, that guy, he could potentially end up being one of Army's top rushing running backs up with Mike Mayweather if he stayed for the 4 years. You got to believe he's received some interest from other schools already. Otherwise, you're probably not doing this the night of the Army-Navy game. We'll see. Interesting to see where he goes and what happens to him. We wish him all the best. This transfer portal stuff, I mean, you look at guys like Isaiah Austin, who went to Iowa State. He got an NIL. Iowa State, very talented team that was in the top 15, maybe even close to the top 10 this year. He got in some. He did play games, but I don't think he had many catches for the Cyclones. You look at a guy named Cleb Lubin, who was a linebacker for Army. He went to Coastal Carolina in the transfer portal. He had a really good year for Coastal Carolina. He went back into the transfer portal this now, and he's getting offers from like an Auburn. So you just never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen in the transfer portal. So I don't know, Seth and Cuthbert, you have any thoughts before we go?
I was just going to say that, every team is losing players. The unfortunate thing for Army and the other service academies, we don't gain any players. So the way college football is today, you got to expect this. Some other kid is going to emerge, a freshman or sophomore next year, who'll be very good. I hope. I would think so. And we may be having this conversation, the same conversation a year from now about somebody else, because this is what's happening. The agents are out there. They're calling these kids up, all across the country, and they're saying, "Hey, I can get you money from 5 or 10 schools. You can have the pick of the litter." And some kids are biting. Some kids just may not want to be at West Point anymore. Some kids just may want to see another opportunity. It may not always be about money, though I think it often is. So get used to this until they figure out how to fix this system, if they ever do. I think there will be contracts coming to keep kids through the bowl season. I also think the bowl system is going to change for the teams that don't make the national championship. I think, some people say to me there might be a NIT type system for the group of 5, and that will take 8 teams in and have them play off. That's interesting. That's a little different. I don't know. Something has to be done because the system is broken right now, and we paid the price by losing a great player who we all hope does very well someplace else. But this is what's going on everywhere, guys. It's going every school.
Oh, sorry, Seth, I didn't mean to cut you off. Obviously, as a service academy, the transfer portal is 100% attrition for us. However, because we're a service academy, it's a developmental system. So it's actually fairly rare that we have underclassmen who are performing to the level that their entrance into the transfer portal is going to make an immediate change to one of our either our offense or our defense, right? So I remember when Anthony Atkins, when he hit the transfer portal and went to UCLA, that was tough. Obviously, Isaiah Alston. A few years back, Steve, I think you referenced it. It was T-Rob and a couple of other guys. They kind of all went in together, and then I think they all ended up staying. If I remember, I think they were late additions to the portal. I felt like that happened maybe even after the season had concluded. If the window was open at that time, maybe it's different then than it is now. I don't really know when the window is exactly. The way that he went in immediately indicates to me that there is significant interest in other schools. And I mean, he's a fantastic running back, to your point, Sal. I'm very, very sorry to see him go. I know he's going to go somewhere. I really hope he does well there. It just is what it is. And real quick, there was a comment a minute ago, William De Los Santos. He and we're thinking on the same wavelength. Kanye Udoh, one of the reasons Kanye Udoh came to West Point was because his high school teammate, Brady Smalls, came to West Point.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so here we have another all-star sophomore who, if he's going to go, now's the time. And I don't want to speak it into existence, but since it got commented, I had to. That's been on my mind since Udoh put in for the transfer portal. And if he goes too, so be it. It is what it is. You know what I mean? At a certain point, like, this is college football. You know what I mean? And we all just need to kind of take a step back and take a deep breath and be happy that at least we're not losing so many people we're withdrawing from bowl games.
Yeah, and I was going to say that the people that are going to enter a transfer portal for us are underclassmen, and that means they had a really good season to, enter the transfer portal, so to speak. We don't know the X, Y's, and Z's of why Udoh's entered the transfer portal. It could be he wants to be closer to home. He could hate the cold. It could be, school's not going well. We don't know all the ins and outs. We just know as football fans, it's the transfer portal. When back in the day, sophomores and freshmen left all the time at West Point because they don't like the school, because it's pretty difficult. And to your point, we don't have to worry about this once they become juniors and seniors. We know we at least have them as juniors to come back as seniors. Otherwise, they're going to be sent to the Army. So it's their transfer portal will be to the United States Army. So that is one benefit from it. I would like to see some type of. I would like to see just because of how much money Army football brings into the academy. I would like to see some type of trust or some type of thing developed for players that they can't touch, but something that possibly could be held to the amount of money they brought to the academy, like an NIL, that they can't touch until they retire or they no longer are serving and their active duty time's up, or something to that effect. Just so it's not so enticing for an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid that doesn't have the life experience and doesn't have the perspective on making that decision yet. And I get it. It's a free education. It's you're serving your first service, not money. But it would be an interesting aspect if there could be some type of system developed that not necessarily penalizes, but entices other players to come to West Point that they can touch maybe towards the end of once they're done service.
Yeah, and there could be. I thought of another factor, and this could change now, but right now, I believe that if you can't go straight directly to the NFL on like a free agent contract right now, the way things are set up. So could that have play the role
Yeah,
little bit of a role too?
Yeah, I mean that tends to bounce back and forth under President Bush. He changed it to where you could go direct, and then President Obama changed it back, and then President Trump changed it back, and now President Biden changed it back. So that's what we saw happen to Andre Carter. Projected first, second round. They changed the rule, and then there was this kind of concern that he wouldn't be able to. They don't want to waste a draft pick because if he has to serve, if some grandfather clause didn't work out. So it'll be interesting. We'll see what President elect Trump does when he's in office. If he switches it back, I think it's probably things lower on the priority list of important things to handle so far. So, but yeah,
eventually that could happen. So who knows? But that could factor into. There's so much, and you just hope that the brotherhood's strong enough that these guys and the success that Army's having on the field, winning a AAC championship will keep them. You don't know. Like
I will say this. I will say this. You have a strong brotherhood when that guy feels like he can leave. What you don't want is to have the type of brotherhood where there's resentment and there's that sense of like you're either you stay or you're going to be ostracized type of deal. That's not anything that we ever wanted. We just wanted, the guys that want to be there will be there. And that'll give us our best shot to build the most concrete team unity that we can.
No doubt. We'll just get to William De Los Santos's comment. Good news for Army transfer portal. Men's tennis picked up 2 very good players in the portal, started over us plebes. There you go.
Women's basketball picked somebody up a year or two ago.
Yeah. It's Army has one guy that's a transfer portal guy, Kyle Kluska. He, I believe, is the second or third team center on the team. I think he was at Central Michigan for a year. Ironically, that's where Matt Drinkall's going, and I don't
know if you guys. It's really hard not to, but there was a guy named Ted Bentler that played for us. One of the most nasty defensive linemen I've ever encountered in my life. And he was a transfer portal guy where he would have been able to play, but they denied him his 5th year because, back then you lost a year if you transferred Division I to Division I. And he was at Iowa, and he came to West Point because his brother came to West Point. So even though his brother was younger than him, He was a year behind him academically, or maybe the same year. I forget what it was, but yeah, it's a lot has changed in college football. I mean, I'm seeing 30-year-old tight ends for Miami playing. I think I saw the Utah quarterback was the same year group as Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, Cam Rising.
Right,
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence has been in the NFL for 4 years now, so it's wild. But yeah, boys, hey, go Army, beat LA Tech, set record books, and end this season on a good note.
No doubt. Thanks, guys, for watching. Check out our website for stories by Seth and I, and check out our YouTube channel with a bunch of press conferences and some other stuff too. Have a good night, and we'll be back soon. Maybe we'll preview the bowl, but we'll be back to recap the bowl. We'll be on soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great night.
Good night, guys.
Go Army.